JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. October 14th, 2024. Talk really quick about the markets, some of the catalysts this week, and go from there. But happy in I'll just say happy Columbus Day. It's probably gonna be a very muted session today. You still have banks are closed, post office doesn't deliver today, um, and a slew of other little government holiday, what have you. But the markets are still open. So um, yeah, it's probably somewhat muted. This week, to me, Netflix is almost like the official kickoff of the earnings season, but the banks kicked it off on Friday. Strong reports, JP Morgan, BlackRock, Wells Fargo. And then tomorrow, there's no earnings today. And then tomorrow, we have a resumption of the banks. So we'll get Citi, we'll get Bank of America, Goldman Spectacular. We get United Healthcare, which has been an interesting stock lately. And then Thursday we get Netflix, Intuitive Surgical, and then the following week things really start to pick up. I think it's like 41 stocks on the S&P report earnings this week. So there's like 100 names reporting, but we are welcome to the 45th all-time high for 2024 that happened on Friday with the S&P. We'll see what happens here. Blue skies, I'm like a broken record. New highs typically beget new highs, so we're somewhat in a blue sky breakout. Uh, 575 or so support, I guess, if somehow we get some selling or some shenanigans. Uh, but probably hopefully some chop here. 579, 581. Work on that for the next couple sessions, and then maybe we can start working on some more highs. We do get so, outside of the earnings, we have retail sales data on Thursday morning. I don't know if that's going to do much to move markets. Weekly jobless claims, I don't think that's going to do much. And there's some Fed speak today. It's tough really to think much is going to happen outside catalysts. But for me, I put on the watch list, and I'll continue to be somewhat cautious as the VIX remains over 20. I mean, the VIX was up 6% last week, and we're over 20, and the markets were up 1% at all-time highs. It just doesn't jive to me. And again, I keep saying maybe some of it's the election, uncertainty in the geopolitical tensions. Over the weekend, you had military drills from China around Taiwan. I mean, that's like a powder keg ready to explode. Who knows if that's going to happen? Now with what's going on in Ukraine, it kind of creates a distraction so China can do this escalation with Taiwan. What it's going to happen at some point, whether it's this year, in 5 years, or what have you, there's going to be some escalation there. It's a powder keg. That's probably the next, I wouldn't call it the shoe to drop, but the next area of concern. But and then we still have the Middle East. So those are kind of the catalysts to look for. But earnings season, my favorite time of year. So a good sign here, and there were some pieces over the weekend too in regards to the small caps, but a strong rally on Friday, up 2%. Finally, maybe this is the time we can start to outperform. That 225 handles the next spot on the IWM. So if there's more outperformance today, and ironically enough, the Nasdaq futures are up nearly 0.5%, but the small caps are pretty much flat right now. Hopefully that reverses trend at the open, but just waiting for that to start to break out. And then last but not least, here's the VIX. And the VIX was down 2% on Friday, but still up 6% on a week. And that's despite the market rallying. Something under the hood is not functioning properly. Or maybe it is, and it's just preceding some kind of pullback, or one day we wake up and the future's down 2-3%. I hope that's not the case, but that's just things that are in the back of my head. All right, so now individual names. SC finally broke out it was over 100 for a little bit in the morning. Tested 101, pulled back. I was able to lock some more of my October strikes in for a little over 400%. I actually added some strikes the following week. The thing is, the report's earnings sometime in the middle of November, so the premiums are elevated in November. So the plan here is I'm hopefully get the chance to lock more of the rest of the hundreds in, and then I'll look to get some November strikes. I use the term proverbial seal is broken. Once it broke 100, I think that's kind of a psychological barrier, and once that breaks, I think 110 comes much quicker. The move from 90 to 100 was pretty slow, meticulous. I think the move from 100 to 110 is going to be much. It's going to happen heck of a lot quicker. So that's kind of the thought process there. So the plan is to lock the rest of those hundreds in at some point. I'm hoping today, if it gets back over 100. If not, I'll wait for the Tuesday or Wednesday. Don't want to see the premiums coming out of that, and I'll look for some November strikes. But real like SC, I mean, I can go on a rant for a while on SC and why I can remain bullish. But just a great setup heading into its earnings in November. And you take a look at the long-term chart too. It's at multi-year highs, and then you start looking at other levels, 120, 125, and its fundamentals can support a heck of a lot higher valuation. So that's SE. Dell, I added some spec calls into this week. Again, I think I did it a couple weeks ago for it to break over 130, and then we had that news from HPQ in regards to its margins. All this, especially with AMD last week, its AI event, all the back end stuff has to bode well for the the end product, the servers, right? So I just you look at Dell and it's just a matter of time, I think, before it starts to break out. You look at its gap. I think there's a gap around 132 in the middle of July. I think that's the next target, and you can also make a case like if it finds resistance here, you can say it's a double top from the end of September. Hopefully that's not the case, but it is gapping here. Once it gets over 130, I think it's off to the races. I'll lock some of my spec calls in when I get a chance to cover costs and ride the rest. And don't be surprised if I add some strikes for move to 140 if it breaks 132. That'd be the next key spot for Dell. Clear Secure monster week last week from the low 30s, hit multi-year highs, close over 34 for the first time since I have to go back 20. I think it might be at the end of 2021. Just a great story. My calls, I'm going to have to go in to get some Novembers. I still have a shot here at 36. I mean, you're going to need a huge move here this week, but it is gapping up here in the pre-market. It just looks strong. Yeah, 34.73. It might be in the 35s today. So I'll be looking for some November strikes. Again, similar to SE, I'm not going to go on a huge rant on why I love you, but another great story. Fundamentally sound, does dividends, stock buybacks, huge cash cow, has tons of cash on hand. And a high short interest, right? So that's kind of like as the higher it goes, the more fuel is going to provide for its upside. AMD, I put this on the watch list too. I can't remember the last time I got a lotto call on a Friday. I used to do that a heck of a lot more than I do now, and maybe I should. But sometimes it's important to have conviction, right? You just don't just start throwing lotto trades out on Fridays just to do it, right? But I thought, and we're looking at AMD and its event on Thursday, that there would possibly be a reversal on Friday. Sure enough, goes all the way down, tests 163, and then it was off to the races. Within a half hour, I was able to lock some of my calls in for 100%, and then just a couple minutes later, it was 400%. Of course, in hindsight, I wish I locked all of them in, but I thought possibly I had a chance getting over 170. Just a name I'll revisit here. 200-day moving average is 162.33, so it bounced at that handle twice. So I think that's a good sign. I'm not saying 100% that the bottom's in, but I think it trades into the 170s. Don't be surprised if I add some calls there. WW was 207 on Friday, reversed all those gains, closed down 15%. But you put that in perspective, it was up 120% or 119% on the week. So had to think at some point there was going to be a little consolidation. Still plenty of time on my January 25s and 26s. Over the weekend, I don't know if there was someone filed a lawsuit in regards to the compounded GLP-1 drugs. And I think this is in regards to Zepbound, right? So, and their Wegovy. I think, oh, maybe not. LLY's drug, right? So the FDA deemed a shortage, and that allowed these compounded solutions to come out for HIMSS, right? So you take a look at HIMSS. HIMSS this morning is rallying because someone filed a lawsuit. It looks like the FDA might reconsider this ban on compounded GLP-1 drugs. And it's not compounded. I think it's just on the LLYs right now. NVO, which segmatide, however you pronounce it, theirs is not, and that's the one that WW is doing. But to me, this lawsuit and the fact that the FDA is possibly going to retract the ban on the compounded drugs, to me means that this might be a longer path for some of these names. And of course, it's not bullish. Well, I wouldn't say bullish. There's a huge addressable market for this, so I don't think the impact on LOI and MVO is that big. It just opens the door for some of these smaller names. And so you take a look at WW. If you're prescribing a patient this GLP-1 drug at a lower cost, this compounded drug, and then the FDA pulls that away, and now what happens to the patient? They're kind of like on the they're screwed is the word. I don't know how to put it. So I think that's some of the reason why they have some caution here, because it's not like you're prescribing antibiotics for some kind of infection that's going to go away in a couple days or a couple weeks. This is someone has a long-term either obesity issue or what have you, and it's been prescribed for that, or diabetes, and it's something they have to be on, right? It's not like you just say, okay, FDA said you can't get it anymore. Now you have to pay $1,000 a month for the drug. It just, so I think there's some give and take there. So I think it just bodes well. I think it trades back over $2. At some point, I'll look to lock the last of my January 25s and just ride the 26s. For one of those, it's a boom or bust trade, right? WW can be $10 in the coming months, or it could be back under $1. So that's kind of the thought process there. Redfin, maybe this is it. Finally, the beginning of its reversal, back over its 15-day moving average on Friday, up 6%. New home sales come out on Friday. New home sale data. I don't know if that's going to do much for Redfin, but it seems like it needs like a spark, and it's gapping up a little bit here in the pre-market. It gets over $11. I might look for some more strikes here today. And then last but not least, here is Roku, and you have Netflix report earnings Thursday. At some point, they're getting rid of, I think it's 2025, they start getting rid of their subscriber numbers, right? Which is some of the reason the stock sold off earlier this year, despite a huge beat and raise, because people look at that and say, well, why are they getting rid of that data? Why are they not going to provide that color to analysts and investors? But I think a lot of people pour over that data, and they have over the past, because the company wasn't, a monster revenue and earnings driver. Now it is, so I think they can pull that away. And I think the big part of what they're going to announce on Thursday is how well their ad business is doing. And I talked about it a couple weeks ago. If you have Netflix, I've been in it for decades, and the wife logs in and it tells her that they changed, our plan doesn't exist anymore, and we are automatically transitioned to an ad plan for lower money. Like, so now we have ads, and we haven't gotten around. Like, I don't really care for the ads. The kids watch mostly Netflix, but it's like there must be a huge it must be a huge profit driver for Netflix to not, I wouldn't say not force, but like not to offer a non-ad model in conjunction with it, because to me it's like, well, they're probably just forcing you into what's more profitable for them, right? So to me, and so if you take a look at that, just that metric alone, I think that just bodes well for Roku, because that's Roku's bread and butter, right? The monetizing their platform. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but hopefully Roku can get over 80. That seems like the big spot. If it gets over 80, I'll look for some more strikes uh, for a move higher. And I think that's it. Probably, again, a muted session here today. Anybody see the chopsticks? Just remarkable to see the Tesla, well, SpaceX, the rocket launch. I remember there's all these folks who are bearish on Tesla and just hate Musk. And right, you either hate him or love him. I'm not saying he'd be my best friend. Like they call everybody who's bullish Tesla, Musk fanboys or whatever. I mean, I remember when they were originally trying to get the shuttles to land. Like, you were like, how can someone reuse a rocket? You would think this is a science fiction movie, and they would try and get them to land on those platforms out in the ocean, and then the rock would tip over and explode. And the people who were bearish Tesla would like make fun of Musk for that. Oh my, he's exploding rockets, and it's like, now you watch, and he's like, he just took a rocket and had it land in a in a and holds the rocket above, like, just crazy stuff. But you see Tesla up here a little bit in the pre-market. I'm all about good stuff. Biotechs is good for folks and helps, right? Things that are going to help extend mankind. I think that's all good stuff. And not only that, when you have children, you want them to be inspired, right? So anyway, rants for other days. Hopefully we get a nice move here. SE is over 100 here in the pre-market. We have about 14 minutes to the open. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.